All right, good morning, everybody. This is Raul with Anant, and this is our third webinar about software specifically. And today's focus is on CRM software. And our goal today is to understand what the purpose of CRM is in an enterprise business, what are the different types of CRMs, what approach we should take. And to add some different perspectives, we have Stan Reeser, who's a expert in software, and I've met him a few times in DC, but he has a lot of experience, I would say multi-decade experience in implementing CRM for different types of clients in the nonprofit world, I think for the for-profit world as well, a little bit, yeah. And then we also have Vlad joining us from Live Typing, who reached out before to actually talk about landing page software, but it turns out that him and his company, Live Typing, have done work with other CRMs that I haven't really used. So Pipedrive is one of the more well-known ones, and then AgileCRM. So, let's go ahead and get into it. The agenda for today, we'll do a quick intro from the speakers, and then we're going to go into a roadmap of like why a roadmap versus this is what one should do, or like a prescription. And there's a couple of things that I did research on, and also from my own experience of like different steps to choosing a CRM, and that is what hopefully all of the speakers will cover in one way or form. Or but if not, that's okay. If there are questions, let's keep them for the very end. And if you have a question, just go ahead and put it into the chat room, and we'll come back to the questions afterwards. So Stan, because you're sitting right next to me, tell me and tell everybody else a little bit about you, and how you got to play with CRMs.
Hi, my name is Stan Reeser. I'm an independent consultant and have been for most of the last 20 years. Been working with CRM for, I guess, 25 years. I started working with a system that was created in Lotus Notes back in the early 90s for a construction company that I worked for. And it was a sales and marketing system that nobody wanted to use. And so we had to quickly pivot and make it something that was useful. So I learned a lot about what goes into actually making a system to track leads or contact information. Before there was a lot of, back then it was ACT, and then Siebel started coming on the scene. But there really wasn't anything sort of in between that was sort of enterprise, but not the overkill that Siebel was. And after going through and doing all of that, I kept the process going and started working with a company that housed data for nonprofits and on mainframes. And mainframes aren't good about maintaining contact type information because it's very fixed field and very small amounts of data per record. And so I created something, again, in Notes, because that was the tool I knew at the time, that housed that external data. That was right about the time that Salesforce started coming on the horizon, and also Microsoft developed its Dynamics CRM, now they call it XRM product. So those are the two that I'll be talking about, the sort of behemoths, a little bit later.
Awesome. Thank you, Stan, and really welcome your wisdom from that many years of dealing with this stuff, because
Does that mean I'm old?
no, that means you're the smartest person in this group right now. So
Far from it, but
excellent. Thank you. Vlad, you want to talk a little bit about yourself, Live Typing, and how you guys have started to learn about CRMs and why particularly Pipedrive and Agile?
Sure. So at Live Typing, we do mobile and web applications. Usually, we do everything custom and don't use any other platforms. But when we talk about management of leads from any application we need, or when we have a feeling that the client needs the real CRM system, we suggest them to use a already established one as a product. And by ourselves, we initially tried all of those systems. So I can talk about Pipedrive, AgileCRM, Prosperworks, not in the list, but probably we can talk about it later or next time. So yeah, we use the CRM by ourselves and suggest to use our clients after we did a custom web or mobile application.
Great, excellent, thank you. Yeah, I'm Raul Singh. I'm executive officer at Anant, and you know, I wouldn't say that I'm a CRM expert, although I've helped people probably implement 10 different types of CRM. Some of them were custom, not necessarily built on Lotus Notes, but built on .NET and SQL Server, a custom application that worked with their internal ERP. That was the most custom thing that I worked on. And then recently have helped people with Salesforce implement different workflows. I want to talk about Nutshell because I tried a bunch of different software about 7 years ago to choose one for our company, and Nutshell was the one that I liked, and they've kind of grown and picked up trends and changed their interface, and still been not only powerful but also cool. And so that's why I would like to talk about Nutshell. So let's go ahead into the idea of when we choose any software, let alone a CRM, why we should have a roadmap. And I'm going to delve a little deeper into enterprise technology so that the larger conversation of software, we cover that. That's the group. Enterprise Tech Meetup is about talking about enterprise software in general. And in enterprises, CRM is just one of the many different systems that are coordinated together by IT or web IT. So I'm not going to go into this much, but as a person, I do a lot of the management of internet teams and internet software teams, as well as the difficult data engineering, because they tend to go together. And CRM is a big part of that. How do we grow a company on the internet? Well, you got to have a CRM to manage your database of customers. And CRM data is generally one of the pieces of business information that all enterprises work with. It is probably one of the single most important things any business really manages is their customer list. That's why it takes up 35% of all software as a service businesses, because every business has to have a customer database if they want to last. It's no longer like we go out to the marketplace and sell, some potatoes and rice, and we have a personal relationship. If a business is on the internet, everybody that they interact with is pretty much on the internet as well. Businesses go through these phases. This is not a diagram that I constructed out of my own wisdom, but it comes from a book called Enterprise Architecture as Business Strategy. And what it says is that all businesses go through these phases, and there's a phase 5, which is business to business modularity, which I think companies are starting to achieve with internet software already. And they kind of leapfrog this. But all companies have, in the first phase, business silos. So somebody will use a CRM, and another person will make a website, and another person in the team will put their stuff on Google Drive, and they'll organize the customer files in a certain way. And initially, it's not a big problem until the company starts to grow and people start to see the pain points. So we're not going to talk about the phases of business technology, but I just want people to be aware that CRMs could be integrated in a business as a business silo, or ideally, it's part of the business modularity. It connects well into the business for growth. I think today, especially businesses, because they use online software, there is a disconnectedness that comes with folks that just subscribe to software. There's nothing bad about it, nothing inherently bad about it, but because the data is in somebody else's system and it's behind an API, it's not as easy, or maybe it is just a different problem, different situation. Sorry, same problem, different situation. Whereas before, people have a CRM database, they would have an ERP database, and we would have to connect things together. Nowadays, it's all over the internet using REST APIs and SOAP APIs. So, one of the things that I believe in is that any software should fit into an organization as some sort of part of their central system of record or their master data. Because the problem that I've seen over and over again is once people add a different system to their enterprise toolkit, they always come back to how can I find, analyze, and act on that information. Even though salespeople are sitting on a CRM all day, maybe somebody in customer service needs to look up that customer. Or maybe the project managers need to have the most updated CRM data showing up on the project dashboard. So keeping these things at the top of our mind, let's go ahead and get into decision making, the roadmap, why a roadmap makes better sense than to just take some recommendation from somebody and use it. So I don't know if anybody here has heard this statement, I'm going to make a new operating system. Recently, probably not. But when I was learning programming, that was the thing people would say. I'm going to make a new operating system. And I even said something stupid like that. And my mentor was like, why would you make a new operating system? Linux is already out there. Windows is already out there. Macintosh is already out there. Why would you make a new operating system? Later on, I would hear things like, oh, I'm going to make a new web server. And other things like, I'm going to make a new blog or I'm going to make a new CMS. And, it's really, is it any different from people saying, I'm going to go reinvent the wheel? And one of the guys who makes WordPress, he has a very famous statement. He says, "Only reinvent the wheels. You need to start rolling." And CRM is one of those areas where there are so many different wheels and tires and almost like fusion drives out there that really doesn't need to happen. We don't need to recreate the wheel. Basically, the other end of the problem is that my tool can do everything. Salesforce can do all the things.
Some would argue.
Some would argue that. WordPress can do everything. And it's funny, I got this off of Google Images, and it's like, okay, maybe not everything. But I think the right approach is to really take a pragmatic approach, which is what is it that we need first, and then filter down the pieces of software to decide. And that's why in our talk, we're going to look at 4 different tools and see how could it help me. By the way, just to be clear, I don't think either of us are paid representatives of the software they're talking about. So this is just from our personal experience. Maybe one of these guys looks at this webinar video later and pays us with checks, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. So a roadmap is about looking at goals over tasks. It's looking at people over the process and process over the information over the systems. Because if at least, and I want some commentary from Vlad and from Stan on this, is that when people choose a system, they lock themselves into what type of information they can manage sometimes. Then they lock themselves into either using whatever default processes are in there and not really innovating. And then finally, the other problem is that there wasn't any buy-in, so people just stopped using the software. So do you have any commentary on that?
Yeah, the last two that you said particularly, people will. So, to use Salesforce as an example, Salesforce is extremely customizable. So is Microsoft's product. You can basically create an object of anything you want and relate it to any other objects that you want, and create XRM, X relationship management. The problem is that people start with the basics, and that's not a bad idea, but then they never grow beyond that. And then that can lead to the last one you said, which is that then it just starts to get shelved because it doesn't actually fulfill the needs. And that's really, it's a big problem that I've seen with implementations. Even the best implementations can go awry if you don't. And that was actually the very first time that I worked on this was with the construction company. We hit that. We had this thing that it did what corporate thought it should do, but it didn't do what the end users needed it to do.
Right.
And so we basically went around and revamped that whole process to make it focused on what those people that were in the front line needed to do to achieve their daily tasks, and not have to do things really hard ways. And then we saw usage get adopted. So that's sort of the the combination of those two things. The more that you can take what's there and make it most useful to the people that are using it, the more that you'll get the adoption.
Right, great. So we'll come back to that in a second. Vlad, did you have any commentary on kind of the approach of not choosing a system first, but really looking at the people and then going down from there?
Definitely, yes. So the biggest part is for what exactly we need CRM and research that need across departments, because usually if we talk about one department, it might be straightforward, but when we go to a production version of any system, people actually start to use that, and we figure out that another person from another department needs that, like another person needs accounting, and it's starting to roll over because CRM, it's one of the case system in any company, I guess, and that's why people like Salesforce, because it's expandable to infinity, I guess. But yeah, but at a particular time, people start don't care how ugly it could be, and it's important to understand like future roadmap, at least a possibility of customization. And usually these nowadays CRM system, I guess all of them have APIs, and with additional customization, you can do some stuff, or with integration with a third-party software or with Zapier. So any possibilities are inside those CRMs, but it depends on how much money, time, and investment you would like to do, and how beautiful with good UX for your employees you want it to be.
Yeah.
So researching upfront, it's a really helpful thing, could save time, money, and make the best decision.
Failure to plan is planning for failure. Somebody said that. I don't know who, but well, excellent. And I think both of you guys really covered this idea of the tools are powerful. They can do a lot of things, but if we don't talk to the customer essentially and figure out what their goals are, we're not going to be able to help them. And the last statement I wanted to say is that I think businesses, and then the people, let's say in sales or customer service or support, their goals aren't, I want to be a Salesforce expert. Their goals aren't, I want to be an AgileCRM user. Their goal is to either get new clients, keep the clients happy, and get paid from the clients. I mean, like, businesses have those goals. And so if there are processes that support those goals, then those processes probably won't change much. But maybe 10 years later, the whole software may change. They may go from Siebel to Salesforce, from Salesforce to whoever Salesforce's successor will be. But if there's a culture of setting the goal of why do we need this software, it should be that culture should focus on what is the purpose of the software in relationship to the company's goals, not what is the purpose of the software in itself. And I think that's the trap technologists like I used to get into, which is Salesforce can do all of the things, which it can. It's like it's a database. It's a platform to make applications now, and it's true. Force.com, you can make a software as a service application to do anything and have it relate to Salesforce's customer objects. But if I don't have a vision, or if we don't have a vision for what we're doing, it's just another toy that I create and charge clients for, and then the clients get pissed off because nobody's using it. So, what's the goal with CRM? So these are just some, basic goals that people may have. Tracking leads and the lead activity. And people have different names, different nomenclature for what is a lead, what is an opportunity, what is a customer base. So, I'm not going to necessarily say this list is comprehensive, but are there any other thoughts in terms of like what people may want to do with a CRM?
It varies, but let Vlad go first.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Stan is sitting right next to me, Vlad, so go ahead, Vlad. Any thoughts?
Actually, CRM could be admin panel for managing automation. If we connect that to API, for example, what we did is that by moving something by the columns and changing some fields, we're reacting to this, and like shadow brain behind CRM do the magic. and it's like really the interface to manage stuff. It has problems because it really needs to be any employee needs to be instructable and be familiar with what behind that, and naming convention helps to tell people, hey, this is a automation field and magic field. If you do that, the automatic stuff happens, like invoice went out, or email went out, and etc. So this is one example, pretty advanced.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, yeah, like an admin panel for automations, like we were talking about earlier, this customer record is one of the most important records in the company. Different data will come in about that customer, and maybe different things could be automated. And I'll actually have that in the business workflow, just a quick basic business workflow of like, how does a lead become a customer? Could that be automated? And I'm glad you mentioned things like Zapier earlier. I think we can talk about that as well.
I wanted to just go back a step from where you were talking about recreating the wheel. And so one of the things that all of these tools now have that I didn't have when I created things in Lotus Notes, and this is 15 years ago that I created things in Lotus Notes. Lotus Notes was a platform in itself, but it was just a document. It was a NoSQL database.
Yep.
And you could throw things at it and it would stick, and it was very, very quick to get things created. Salesforce is, and other platforms are sort of extensions of that. Some of them are less customizable than Salesforce, so I'm gonna use that as my example again. Compared to what I had to do with Notes, I had to create the plumbing. I had to create those connections between those documents. I had to create those, whereas that sort of next step has been done for you in Salesforce. So you can start off with objects that have connections to each other, that have the ability to roll up data, were all sort of things that you had available before when you would use a platform, but not there for you. So when you're looking at the things that you have up there, tracking different things, managing different relationships, you can manage relationships between anything you want by just creating a new object. When we get a little further on, and Salesforce has this trailhead that is training. And one of the things they have you create a battle star relationship between supplies and the functionality of it and all of that.
Right.
So you can create, based on anything you want, based on, supply chains, Internet of Things. You can have data that's coming in and going back out, and you can manage those relationships.
Right.
So it really doesn't matter.
At that point, it's almost like an ERP.
It is. It's whatever data you have coming in and whatever data you need going out, you can manage that through a system like this. Sometimes it doesn't make sense though. If you have, just a slew of data coming in, streaming, a system like Salesforce isn't at least where you want that to be your front line, because it's not quick enough to handle streaming data. But there are other things you can do.
Right.
You can set up something in Heroku, and I'll get into that later, why that really works very well with Salesforce. But there's other things that you can do and then feed the resultant data into Salesforce at a much slower rate. Those sorts of things can be done. Anyway.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I'm glad you mentioned Heroku, and that's one of the Heroku Connect is one of the things that we've used, and man, it saves so much time.
Well, it sits right next to Salesforce. In Amazon's
data center.
Center. So if you need to get data in and out of Salesforce quickly and easily, it's the best way to do it.
Yep. And it's worth the money too.
Yes.
So how to get there? Some of the things that I feel is important to look at is what is the implementation process going to be? If it's a simple CRM, how long is that going to take? Because a CRM is not just we're going to buy something and use it. There's always going to be some quote setup costs. Even if the customer or even if the software company doesn't charge anything, somebody in the company is going to have to put it in place, and that's a labor cost. There's no zero cost, no setup system. Whether you buy it open source or SaaS, it doesn't matter. There's some implementation costs. User adoption is an issue. How will folks be taught this? Is there going to be continuous retraining? When new employees get onboarded, is that part of the training to use a CRM or to use whatever system is in place? Too many times I've seen we don't use a CRM because nobody uses it. That's like literally the statement. We don't use a CRM because nobody uses it. It's like, well, that's like a chicken and egg. Well, how do you fix that problem? And the first question I generally asked is, well, did you go to your 5 salespeople and ask them what they were doing before? It's like, oh, well, they use Excel or they use, Google spreadsheets. It's like, okay, great, but what were they doing with this stuff? And that's a whole different ballgame of like, what are the sales and lead generation and prospecting best practices? There's a book I'm listening to right now. It's called Fanatical Prospecting. And this guy's a pure sales guy. Those straight up, knock on doors type of guy. And he clearly says, CRM, get used to it, learn it. I don't care how stupid you think you are. You got to use a CRM because that's the only way a sales can actually, scale. But user adoption may not just be limited to salespeople or marketing people. In some of the firms we work with, it's the customer service people, like Vlad was saying, it's the case management for the customer. Mobility, apparently there's a trend that if it's available on a mobile device, more people use it. That makes sense. How does it integrate with email? I don't know about you, but people still use email. It's one of the best ways to communicate with customers. So how can that work together? Customization, we talked about earlier, the last slide, how you could technically customize Salesforce or any other item that we're going to talk about. And maybe the users need to buy in. Maybe the users need to see a demo before they say, sure, we'll use it. So does the demo look good or does it work well?
Or even a proof of concept.
Proof of concept, yeah.
When I rolled out, when I was rolling out a CRM for a project called Food Day, they were managing different sorts of campaigns. So they wanted mayors to do a proclamation for Food Day. They wanted universities to set up information in the cafeterias. They wanted churches to do potlucks. So they had all these different things they wanted people to do. And, that...
there's all these different activities from different places, essentially, different people that are not necessarily in the core, I guess, right?
Right. And so what we did was we set up Microsoft and Salesforce side by side.
Oh, nice.
And let them use both. They'll easily give you a 30-day trial, and it's not hard to do minor customizations. We actually needed to do a lot more customizations because of all the complex things. But it was nice to be able to see both side by side for the users because they really had an affinity towards the Salesforce one over the Microsoft one. They sort of leapfrog each other so that, can change at any given time. But at that moment, they glommed onto the Salesforce model.
Yep. And then finally, reporting. I know it's like same old, right? Data goes into a database. Data needs to come out of a database, and it's a report for business. So, how is the reporting going to be used by individuals and also the business? And how is that part of the incentive structure? At least in the CRM and the sales side, that's a big reason why the salespeople want to track their activities. That's how they're compensated. So we kind of talked about this already, but these are the different criteria that we're going to evaluate, the 4 tools we're looking at. And, one of the only thing that I think, 2 things that I didn't mention earlier, or 3 things, is that, what are the automation features that are built in or could be added? What is the marketplace for add-ons? I mean, it goes without saying, Vlad was mentioning that everything basically has an API, and you can probably connect it with Zapier, but what else can you do with it? And very important, like, if you're working with a startup, can they afford a $150 per month license per user? Is that feasible? Maybe it isn't right now.
And you never want to buy in terms of a product. A lot of these are easy enough to move data from one to another, that if you start with one and you outgrow it, that isn't a huge problem the way that it used to be, where data wasn't easily transferred between them.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't. Right now, I'm using HubSpot.
Yep.
Because I actually implemented it because it started as Sidekick.
Right.
And it allowed you, the one thing that allowed you to do is allowed you to track emails that you sent out, whether or not somebody opened it.
Right.
And then they changed it and they altered it. And so now all of a sudden I find myself using HubSpot, which I never really signed up for, but it's a CRM system. And for me, it's actually more than enough for the amount of stuff that I need. Yep. I would never implement Salesforce for myself. It would be ridiculous. So don't overstretch. And sometimes you, like, just by serendipity, you can find something that's useful.
Yep.
So, like I said, HubSpot is more than adequate for what I need right now, and it's free.
Yep. Yep. So, a quick precursor before I hand it over to Stan, in that most businesses that have any kind of modicum of maturity start to recognize that it's a business workflow. And, they may not know, because maybe they're not technologists, they may not know that a landing page and a lead generation page could be technically different than a CRM. Maybe they think that the CRM is supposed to offer that. Or they may not know that a forms engine could be separate or part of the CRM. And so what I'm really outlining here is that if you take a workflow and break it down to its most common elements, you can really start to see the different systems and how, what the purpose is, but the fact that it's replaceable, what Stan was mentioning earlier. You could use Nutshell to HubSpot CRM today, but then later outgrow it and then have to use, let's say, Nutshell, and then later outgrow that and go to Zoho. And then if you're, have 1,000 people working for you, then, you may have to go to Salesforce because they're probably the only company that could manage you. I don't know. So it's not a once and done thing if you think about it as part of a larger workflow. It goes back to the road mapping of what do we need? Okay, we need some way to get the lead in. Okay, we're going to use Unbounce because they've got a decent landing page platform. Or actually, Vlad will do a presentation on another piece of software at a future date about quickly making a nice looking website to get the lead in. Then Zoho is about cheaper than Salesforce. It has a decent app creator / forms engine. Maybe that's what you need to then manage that information. And then to further push information in and out, Zapier is probably a good enough solution. But where does a CRM fit? In this case, it fits right in the middle. But you gotta look at the bigger picture to understand that. I mean, if you just think, okay, Salesforce will either A, do everything or not do everything, or Agile will do everything or not do everything, we end up closing ourselves to the possibilities of what the strengths are and what the weaknesses are for these tools. I know we're talking about Salesforce. We consulted a client who ended up using Zoho CRM and App Creator. And they were, by the way, sorry, Vlad, they were going to use a company to build a custom Ruby on Rails app. And I said, what does this application do? It's like, well, it kind of manages this basic workflow. And I was like, why don't you use Salesforce? Or why don't you use Zoho? And it was like a light bulb went off because it was like, I didn't know those things could do what I wanted. And it was just basically breaking down the business problem into the fundamental units. And he actually tried to go to Salesforce, and the guys at Salesforce weren't able to sell him Salesforce. And he said, these guys don't know how to sell their software. I was the one who was selling it to him. I was selling him on Heroku Connect and Salesforce. I said, if you want to do custom stuff and not spend too much time on it, you could get Salesforce, get Heroku Connect, manipulate your data inside Postgres, and that would be exactly what you need. And basically, there was a disconnect in Salesforce. The Heroku Connect guys, they only know how to sell Heroku Connect. And the Salesforce sales guys only know how to sell Salesforce. So he went with Zoho. Did you have any comments, Dan or Vlad? Nope.
Let
Yeah.
Vlad go.
Yeah, from my perspective, definitely if a customer wants something that we do know that there is such tool in the market, we're trying to tell them, hey, like there is no reason to make that thing custom. Let's do the integration,
Right.
and before do that, let research and pick something that suits you.
Yeah.
But by default, what we see in U.S. market is people usually think about Salesforce as the only tool, like it's only DP. It's like a big alternative for all this Microsoft Access. By the way, I also see how people successfully use Microsoft Access,
Yep.
and they're totally fine with that. In other Salesforce, in other CRMs, probably the biggest advantage is speed and UI and simplicity.
Yeah.
Also simplicity of pricing. But in the same way, I don't know about Nutshell, but none of those like Pipedrive, AgileCRM, Prosperworks, they don't have ability to create whatever custom object you want. Yes, you can do custom fields in a traditional objects like deals, customers, companies, and maybe products, but you don't have these level of flexibility. Okay, now I would like to have, I don't know, like a checks or something. And usually it's alright because the things that people needs beyond that is usually parts of different systems, and it should be integration. But I know for sure that Salesforce is like silver bullet for okay, whatever I want I can do. Right. But in the same time, it requires management, requires installation, requires learning, and it's really worth of thinking, should I just use another system and integrate stuff, or should I make some workarounds? The trend right now, and what entrepreneurs do is they do a lot of stuff in one system, and that's okay. You don't want to switch between screens a lot, but probably if your case system will be a CRM and another system will be like for another department, and this another department use only like another system and not the Salesforce or your CRM, that would be fine. So I don't think that the mixing everything in one system is the best solution, and should think about what are those in the market tools, what are the best ones for you, because if it's a dedicated tool for one task, it's probably do that best. So
yep.
And it used to be that, like, it used to be a few years ago, everybody wanted an app. Yep. Thank God that subsided.
I know.
Because not everything needs an app. Not everything needs to be downloaded and has its own infrastructure. And there's a lot of things. Just about everything that you need has been created by somebody for something, for some reason at this point in time. There's very few things that are revolutionary from the ground up, particularly in terms of enterprise software.
Yeah.
And so not reinventing the wheel and more focusing on solving the problem. And what I like to ask clients isn't even so much how are you currently doing things, it's what do you find that you need to do that you can't do? What are you doing what are you hacking?
Yeah.
Because, what are you hacking Excel or hacking some other software to try to accomplish that is, taking more time and more effort and more energy than it needs to. Yeah. And those are the places that you can come in and you can really quickly create value for your customer or create value in your organization if you're an internal IT person. Solving something that is difficult, and if you can solve it quickly with off-the-shelf or modestly customized software is always more effective than building something from scratch and having to maintain that code base.
That maintenance task is what kills people with cost later. Excellent discussion. Looks like we're doing the panel part before the software review. I like it. So actually, this is something that I've worked on for several years, which is to help people, have customers understand how software basically works together, and to show them that some departments have common needs for information that may not be coming from the same system, and also that these things are interchangeable. The systems themselves are interchangeable. Well, who the people are, what processes they need to execute, or what, like you said, what do they want to do, or what they need to do, what they can't do right now, what information they need to manage for those processes, and then what systems could help them. And this is just to show that if you map out the big picture of people, process, information, and systems, you can see what Zapier needs to do. For example, where does the information need to sync? And and I didn't mention Stripe earlier, but that's another software as a service for payment, for example. Can Stripe be used for payment? Do we need to use authorize.net and make something new? Can we just use something that's kind of off the shelf, ready to go? And really, this methodology, we call it modern enterprise, but and actually Stan was at the presentation I gave this on software algebra. If you look at X, Y, and Z as parameters in your business formula, right? These functions can be replaced. You can replace Unbounce with a WordPress site, or vice versa. You could replace Zoho CRM with Salesforce, or let's say AgileCRM. Zoho App Creator, which is kind of like Force. I guess it's not really like Force.com. It's more like the objects inside Salesforce. But you can replace Zoho App Creator with Google Forms if you really wanted to. That agility is, I think, what people need now in their mindset, because these companies may come and go, and you don't own that hardware. You don't own that software. You just own your information. You got to be able to move from one thing to another. And it's that kind of like the pre-mortem process in like a Stoic philosophy. It's like just plan for the worst. Just plan that maybe Salesforce will go out of business. What do we do? Well, just have a formula that will replace Salesforce with whatever happens to be there at that time. It could be Microsoft. It could be Google gets into the CRM business. You never know. So Stan, we're at actually 9:50. So I want to dedicate 5 to 10 minutes, talk about each of our products, and then we could probably take a few questions, but I don't want to keep people too long past our allocated time. So go ahead.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of this, so I'll go through pretty quickly. This slide just shows some of the dashboards that you can easily create. One of the things I do like about Salesforce is that I haven't found anything that is as well documented and as well supported as Salesforce. The Trailhead training that they do for introductory to intermediate level stuff is unsurpassed as far as I'm concerned. They make it fun. They make it interesting. I did this in about 20 minutes, from nothing to data and,
Right.
Putting these up, and having not done that before. This is their Wave Analytics portion, which is not cheap. But you could, like you said, you could substitute in Power BI from Microsoft, which is virtually free and incredibly powerful as well. So these don't need to be static, but this is something that's pretty easy to do right out at Salesforce. And if you want to just pop to the next one, this is the thing I was talking about before. This is the Battle Station module that they have you create, and this is a typical Salesforce page. There's a lot of things that you can modify across the top that are different. From leads to contacts to opportunities, etc. But you see the highlight is Battle Stations. So this is the Battle Stations tab, and this is the details about a battle station. And you can see that it's fully operational, and that is done by rules. So when you fill in certain things, it actually changes that to fully operational once it meets certain criteria. So, you can do those sorts of automations, and it tells you how to do it. And again, this took 20 minutes.
And for somebody who's not familiar with Salesforce, I just want to be very clear. There are certain things that comes with Salesforce. And what Stan is talking about is that he created this Battle Stations tab, and you probably didn't program anything. You just kind of like
no,
click.
It's all declarative.
Right.
It's all point and click and choosing fields that you want and configuring those fields. But there is Apex, which you can write, which is sort of like Java, C# kind of code that you can write. And sometimes you do, for really complicated things, you may want to write Apex to trigger certain things. But in this case, that was not necessary. And yeah, each of those tabs, and you can customize that so you don't have to see all those things. It's everything within Salesforce is customizable, and it's a huge ecosystem. This is the sales model. So in the far left, you see where it says sales. There's also a service module there, which service has cases. And so if somebody calls in, you create a case and you maintain the information about that case so that whoever answers the call the next time has all the information available. Basically modern call center stuff. They have the marketing cloud, which they bought ExactTarget, which made a company called Marketo very unhappy. But
then they bought them too, right?
No, I don't. Did they buy Marketo? Oh, they did. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, I guess that made them happy. I wasn't even aware of that. But so they have the marketing cloud. They have Internet of Things. They have communities, which is sort of like creating a place for your customers or your constituents to come together. Analytics. They've invested a lot in AI. So they have Einstein, and basically that's their competition to IBM's
Watson.
And I'm blanking on a couple others, but they keep extending this ecosystem / universe of what they have available. And then on top of that, they have a marketplace where people have written all kinds of things to do small to huge things. For example, one of the things in the marketplace is something they deploy that's open source called the Nonprofit Success Pack. And that is basically takes Salesforce and converts it for nonprofits. And it's open source, and they actually have community events where people go and help them, create direction, create new code within it. So there's a wide swath of stuff when you start talking about Salesforce. This is just the sales cloud and what you can customize within that. And then the next one is just the relationships. So behind the scenes, you have your typical database schema. This is but these are the custom objects that you create for this.
Right.
And you can base those off of existing objects, so you don't have to start from scratch either. You can also type existing objects, and I won't get into that, but it basically is a shortcut to, this has everything I want, I just want to do something different with it. So there's a lot. And then just to mention on the Microsoft side, which it's very similar to this. The one unique thing that the Microsoft side still has is you can do it on premise.
Yeah.
So you can host this. You can, avoid those subscription costs. There's plus and minuses to that. It depends on, what your skill set is and what your internal IT is, but versus hosting in the cloud. But that is an option that you don't have with Salesforce.
Right.
And then the other thing we were talking about is with Salesforce, but with any of these, you have the option to connect it to other things in the cloud.
Right.
Salesforce has that unique thing where you can, Heroku sits literally in computers right next to it, so you can move data blazingly fast out into Heroku, run all kinds of ridiculously fast things that you would never be able to do. Salesforce has these APIs that you have a certain amount of calls that you can use. And if you were to try and do a lot on millions of records of data, you'd run out of your API calls and it'd be a nightmare. So you can move that data out in the Heroku, do what you need to do, move it back in.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of extensibility there. So
Yep.
that's pretty much all I
Cool.
wanted to say.
Cool. And so, I know that, by the way, this is all going to go onto SlideShare and we'll put it out on the meetup. So you can always look at this for reference. But, $1 million question is, how many millions of dollars does a company or nonprofit need to be spending in IT to think about Salesforce?
You can do it without millions of dollars. I do know that there are nonprofits that have spent millions customizing Salesforce. I find that makes my head explode, that they need to do that. But I have also seen that done with other systems like Blackbaud has Blackbaud BB CRM, which is a very complex system. And I have seen organizations spend millions not just on the software itself, but on customizing that software.
Sure.
And again, my biggest takeaway is don't try and do everything at once. Do what you absolutely need first. Do what is causing you pain first, and then plan for other additions as adoption happens. The worst thing you can do is say, hey, what are all the things that you want in this right now? Because it makes it a huge project, makes for very long timelines that will undoubtedly get missed, and budgets that will undoubtedly get blown. And so do what you need to do the MVP. Do your smallest minimal viable product with this first. Get it in place, get it used, get advocates for it, and then do the things that people then really think that they need, and do a rollout that way. Don't try and do a big huge project to just launch it. I think that's the biggest mistake companies make.
IT projects on time and under budget, said no one ever. But I like what you said here. It's like the IBM of CRM. You don't get fired for putting in.
You won't get fired for it, but it ain't cheap. Even at the base level of 75 for the professional, which isn't a lot, and it doesn't have all the bells and whistles.
And that's per user per month.
Yes, per user per month. So you're looking at $1,000 a year to $3,500 a year for the
one
unlimited per person.
Yeah.
And that's...
So if you're not using it to its fullest abilities, basically, you're kind of wasting your money, right?
Yeah. But then again, apparently nobody's ever paid retail for it. I don't know. I don't know how true that is. But, I'm sure that negotiations happen all the time.
Yep, definitely. If you have more than 5 users, you can always negotiate. I've seen that happen.
I think we touched on everything else there.
Awesome. Thank you. Quick thing about Nutshell. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I'll talk about why I like it. They've changed the interface a few times, but I really like is that it's simple. There's not 1,000 tabs. They're never going to have 1,000 tabs. They're always going to have, for me, the dashboard, the accounts, which are like companies, organizations, whatever, contacts, and leads. And leads are basically an opportunity, or it's like I know that there's an opportunity to win there, so I don't have to go from lead to opportunity. It's a lead, and if I put some value to it, it becomes an opportunity. I can associate different companies and different people. So we actually use it for not just customer acquisition, but for partner acquisition. And recently they added a board view that competes with kind of like Pipedrive's kind of visual board view. And you can see the status of different leads in the pipeline. But their interface to add data and define a process is super simple. And it's not a marketing automation tool. It is, in my opinion, a good sales process automation tool. So we use it for customer acquisition and for partner acquisition. We actually ended up using a plugin called Pandadoc for signatures. So now when there's a lead, we have some canonical templates for NDA and master service agreement, project charter where from the interface we can say send them an NDA. So as long as the data goes into Nutshell, so we've probably cut down the sales process, the paperwork time with Nutshell plus Pandadoc. Can this do things like objects? No, it can't. But I like it. It's visual. If you have a LinkedIn URL for the person, it pulls in some social data about them. If you have a Twitter URL for the person, it pulls in that information, pulls in their profile picture. I mean, it's nice. It's not perfect, but it's nice. And ultimately, we bought it several years ago, so we paid $10 a month per user. That's actually, it was $5 per month per user, but they kind of went up and then they kind of grandfathered us in. They have a decent mobile application. Using webhooks and Wufoo, you can kind of get leads in and get leads out. It syncs well with Google Calendar and Gmail sync. So if you add a calendar item in Google Calendar with a person's email address, it understands that person is in Nutshell and says, oh, you did this. Do you want to log this activity? So from a sales side, it makes it easy for me to track activities, which everybody complains about in sales. And the easiest thing is if I forgot to BCC at nutshell.com, it's not some convoluted Salesforce email address, it will look at the thread, analyze it, and put that activity in there. So that's what has kept me going, is that basic email integration feature. But yeah, I think their focus is sales workflow automation. That's what it is. It's got a really nice process builder. You can say things like, when the lead comes in, after 2 days, set this, deadline that this person needs to go and put this document out there. But that's it for Nutshell. I would recommend it, playing with it.
That's exactly why I like the HubSpot, because it's always right there next to whatever I'm doing in Gmail.
Yeah.
It's like, do you want this in HubSpot? Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty easy. I think the bigger ones will get there at some point, and they have a little bit like that, but don't overbuy what you don't need.
Yeah, and they have one too where it like puts a thing under an email and says, do you want to add this as a contact or a company or a lead? If it's already there, it shows me their information. So yeah, I highly recommend it. They don't pay me for saying this, but they're a good tool. So Agile. So Vlad, please talk a little bit about Agile. Why do you like it, and why do you recommend it to customers?
Okay, can we switch back? I have some questions. Sure. Yeah. So in a nutshell, is there a such object as an opportunity or not at all?
It's just lead, and if you add certain data to a lead, it becomes kind of, there's a value there. Essentially, a lead is an opportunity in Nutshell. But if you wanted to store a bunch of leads, you would just put them into contacts, and an opportunity becomes real when you associate it with a value, basically.
Okay, so is there a statistic about conversions from that thing or not? From leads to contacts, is there such event as a conversion? Is this tracking and do the analytics across that?
I believe the way you can pull that is through the reports. Basically, which leads came with using some basic built-in fields, like what was the source of the contact, and in the leads, when you convert a contact into a lead, you can say, give me the reports for the leads. Where did these customers come from? Specifically, what you're talking about, I don't think it may not be there. And right now, I don't look for that report. I really look for. Well, I'll just preface this with, I don't put stuff in Nutshell unless I know I'm going to be closing that. I just don't constipate our sales process with leads that will never get through the first qualifying phase. So essentially, if they're not going to sign an NDA, we're probably not putting them in there. So that's probably the reason that I don't care about it. But maybe I think other people, they start with putting everything into the CRM and then whittling down the pipeline. But we just don't manage the marketing inside Nutshell.
I got it. And could you briefly tell about process markets? What is that? Is that object? Process or market? It's
not necessarily an object, but you can there's a default process. And in a process, and I like it, it only lets you do like 5 or 6 stages. Beyond that, I mean, I guess you could ask for them to let you do more, but you name a process. So, for example, in our process, it's qualify, discover, propose, negotiate, and close. And each of those processes are like a bucket. And in qualify, it's like identify the decision maker, qualify the budget. Is it greater than X amount of money? And if I try to go to discover, then it'll say, hey, who's the decision maker? You didn't add a contact here, or did you validate the budget? You didn't check this off yet. And so you can skip it if you want to, but that allows us to do metrics like, of all the people that signed an NDA and we qualified the budget, how many of them did we close? So every process has some data that I can track there.
So it's like a wizard. It's remind you didn't fill out that thing before going to that stage.
It's like a wizard. Yeah, exactly. And that's as you go through the process and you keep checking off stuff, and you can assign each of the subtasks in the process to different people. So it's not just like one person doing it, right? So if you have somebody that's in contracts, you could say, when this is done, tell the legal team to send out the contract.
Great. Yeah, it's definitely. I think from my point of view right now, without knowing Nutshell, it's like a differentiator from others.
Oh, really? The process, yeah. Well, that's what I think. Yeah. The focus on Salesforce sales workflow automation is why I keep, well, other than the Gmail, other than the Gmail automation, I think it's.
And is there email tracking? So when you send emails, is there a plugin or a service from Nutshell that would tell you like, okay, this customer did view your email or click the link or something which replace YesWire right away with the Nutshell?
So the email tracking, the way, I'm just going to clarify. You're talking about, did somebody open or click an email, right?
Yes, correct.
I know there's a plugin. I don't use it, and actually, Artur's one of my team members sent me something, but I should maybe start doing that. But no, I haven't looked into it, so I don't know if I can answer that question yet.
Okay. Yeah. So we can do move to Agile. Agile, it is our end base because our sales people like to use that, because it is marketing inside that. And you cannot really see right away because it's just a promotional image and a bit different from what we have right now. But in AgileCRM, there is a concept of 3 products inside one. And there is like a big mode switcher between marketing, sales, and support. So the CRM features are like, the same. Probably there's no such a workflow process management, but you really can add custom objects. And with the marketing kind of module, there is a full featured marketing automation. And AgileCRM is just example of a guys who did bunch of features, and that might really be your only one product. It's not so flexible as Salesforce in terms of different fields, but right to start with, it might be, not so pretty simple from right away, but it's not really a hard one. If you spend a bit of time, you get used to that, and everything you need in terms of marketing is there. The biggest feature that you actually got, for free inside the product is email campaigns, algorithm, and workflow management. So if you are a person who willing to have all leads right away in the CRM, it's probably a good CRM. So you don't have, okay, we put in CRM once we, sure about a particular stage with a client, but you add everybody there, and your marketing is there, and email tracking. We actually integrated the call service through Twilio, so you can call and record callings, and everything inside one. You as a user or a manager or VP of sales or marketing can research that, and if you really like that, it's probably good to go. we do interfaces, custom interfaces, so we're pretty picky about design. That's why we don't use their forms, but their forms pretty advanced and easily pastable inside your website, and you can construct forms inside that. There's no need for you to integrate other solutions. So if you want to have multiple features and tools inside one, go and review AgileCRM. If we switch to the next slide, yeah, I made these automation, mobile marketplace, and dance pricing and scaling like links. So if you click on those, you'll go to particular landing pages of these AgileCRM. In terms of customizations, you can customize fields inside deals, contacts, companies. This is it. No kind of extra object to that. And
I'm just opening these links up. I'll come back to the slide in 1 second.
Sure. So if you about automation, definitely marketing automation, forms, landing pages, you can do those. Yeah, this is a really powerful thing because you might pay extra money for different email trackers, these things, but if you're not picky and you kind of starting having these tools everywhere, like from different kind of places, but integrated, and do their tools. They are not just integrating stuff. For integration, they have another place, and I will show about that later. For example, Twilio integration. But really, these marketing automation are really powerful tool if you interested in that and if you like that. So me personally, I'm more of a later stage guy. It's important for me to see like the stage beyond NDI signed. But if you are before that stage, it's definitely something that you would like to have. Of course, mobile application, iOS app in beta. So yeah, these are screenshots. Another good thing is that they have these calendar, invite, and schedule for meetings. So I like to use Calendly, but AgileCRM has this feature also. These guys, I guess, the main office of a production from India, and when you hear that, sometimes you might think that, hey, this is not high quality, but it really is. Even we develop the software, we understand how how these market differentiate, and many companies outsource software in India. But these guys actually created quality stuff, and it's amazing how many features inside that we don't even use, like Zapier or something. And the pricing, I think this is the cheapest pricing in not terms of quality, but it's the best quality feature to price ratio.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And by the way, Zoho is also, I think, an Indian manufactured company. They have a huge presence globally at this point, but it's
Zoho is kind of international company, I think so. But AgileCRM, I think that the most of the people sitting in India and do this production, and it's amazing. So if we come back to presentation,
eat their own dog food too, because I signed up for that last night.
Yeah.
And within an hour, I had 3 emails and a phone call.
That's pretty cool.
So
Nice.
So be aware of that. If you sign up, they're going to call you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that they that you get put into an onboarding.
Nobody went out of business for cold calling and trying to get work. So, or you were a warm lead technically.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, I had signed up for the free one.
Yeah.
They had unfortunately caught me while I was trying to fix my lawnmower in the backyard, so I wasn't in a particularly talkative mood. But
another big part that we don't use here is support. And support, because it's sometimes integrated in your sales process, and wherever somebody support or maintain something, it's a relationship to customer. You want to build them, or care about them. And I cannot say a lot about support feature there. We don't use that, but it's definitely there. And I didn't see, probably in Salesforce you have these cases,
yeah,
right? And it might be something close to that, but again, it's a cheapest tool, quality tool with a lot of stuff inside, and you might be good with that. And it has API and field customizations. The only differentiator from Salesforce, I guess, is you're not able to create your custom objects and do stuff with that. Also, there is no these constructor of marketing workflow, but I will not be surprised if they do that like in the next quarter in the AgileCRM. So yeah, it's best feature all in one place: marketing campaigns, automation, price, telephone integration with Twitter, really simple, dashboard, pretty good.
And you use it, right? You're at Live Typing. You guys use this?
Yes, we have 2 offices, and one of our offices in the United States. We use AgileCRM there. We tried. We start from Salesforce.
Yeah.
It was kind of too expensive for us. We don't need a bunch of these features. Again, we cannot automate Salesforce for somebody. Then we switched to Prosperworks.
Yep.
And Prosperworks was like, you have to pay more to get those tasty stuff there. And we decided, okay, if we're about price, what else we have? And we really need this marketing thing. And we don't want to pay for YesWire for email tracking, for another marketing tool. And we decided to go with AgileCRM. But originally, we started from Pipedrive, and another our office still stick with the Pipedrive. I guess it's the most simple interface, and I like the interface itself, not in terms of features or how everything's there manageable, but in terms of the simplicity. It's purely stages in pipeline. You can create multiple pipelines. It's an object, and you have deals. Everything is a deal here. You have companies and contacts. This is it. Yes, you have activities to do, like notes inside the deal, but I like that these 3 main objects linked together. It's easy BCC. There is email integration in terms of you can click Mail tab and just basically see your inbox and answer people from here. I wish they will have email tracking plugin. It's not so hard to do actually in terms of software creation, but for now, if you want this, you have to use YesWire or something like that. They have integration with that. Pipedrive, really simple. If you are just customer relationship management, this is it. Like, you can track and store data there. Very simple. Nothing beyond that, but it's an amazing feature that everything you delete from here, it's not really deletable. I like that because the data is the most important thing inside your CRM, and it goes to trash can but never deletes. And with the API, you can step forward beyond that. There are products there, custom, unlimited custom objects, really good custom fields creation with any types. And with the Pipedrive, we did those basics automations, like, okay, move, for example, untouched contact to contact made, and the mail goes out, or NDA goes out, or invoice goes out. And with additional development, which is simple, you can customize and automate further. So in terms of pricing, it's probably like a same price, a bit higher price than AgileCRM. I don't know why would anybody need 75 because the difference, like just dedicated support there. But difference between 12 and 29 is just a full email integration, which might be not so critical for you. This is it. Very good iOS, Android apps, stylish, simple. There are some web forms. We've never used those, but I guess you can create simple landing pages from those, or from those forms. It's not like they're pasteable, or maybe they are already. So nice UI, focused in a pipeline, nothing extra, but really easy to get on. And onboarding will be pretty simple, very simple.
Nice. Very cool. Well, thank you for reviewing both, especially because it comes from personal experience. You know, I think it has a lot more weight than a salesperson pitching it. I think that's why I feel this video is going to be very valuable for people that are looking for a CRM, is that we all talked about our personal experiences with this stuff. Because ultimately, when I go to meetups, I don't want somebody telling me, oh, buy the software, I work here. I want to hear somebody saying, I use this software, it did a good job. So yeah, this was a very good, you know, review. Unfortunately, we're at 10:20. So what I would like to offer the group for kind of continued questions is basically, you know, put your email in the chat room, and basically, if you want to, and say, you know, hey, Vlad, please get a hold of me. Here's my email. And also, if you want to get invited to there's a Slack community that I've been cultivating of like the sharpest technical people, and specifically presenters for the DC Enterprise Tech Meetup. And then I also manage another group called DC Data Wranglers, and I'm going to start inviting those people. So if you want to discuss this further, either via email or Slack, just, you know, say, hey, I want to be invited to the Slack group, or I want Vlad or I want Stan to contact me. Just go ahead and put that in the chat, and I'll leave the chat room open for a little while. But I'm going to go ahead and stop. Actually, you know, if it's okay with everybody, let's just go until 10:30. It's about 7 minutes, so we can take a couple of questions. So it's a clean hour-and-a-half presentation. Any questions? And I have to unmute all you guys. So any questions from the group here? If there aren't any questions, we can call it a day. All right.
So while everybody thinking, I guess what we didn't cover is Prosperworks, which stands between Salesforce and other in terms of pricing. It's really beautiful Google style CRM. In terms of features, something between AgileCRM and Pipedrive. So it's a bit more kind of, I don't really like
the Google style sheet. They're using, it looks like material to make their.
Yeah. It's good. It's advanced, sleek. We didn't like the kind of pricing that they push you. They push you like they treat you as a real enterprise. The really good stuff, email tracking. When you send out individual, you don't have to do campaigns. If you send something to your customer, email tracking is pretty good there. And it's beautiful, multiple objects. There is a such concept as an opportunity, optional. So if you are willing to have like, you know, like prospect, like lead, then convert that to no, the concept of conversion. My bad is it's not like a lead, but there is an object like deal and lead, and there is a event of a conversion from one-to-one to a contact, from lead to a contact. So if you're picky about that, you definitely know that you need to count this conversion. You go for AgileCRM, but a stupid and very strange thing is that if you want a statistic about this conversion, you have to go to a higher plan. So it's like, yeah, they a bit tricky, but nice, looking very, very good, and it might you know, help you selling this piece of tool in your organization. API requests, they are custom fields, yes. So not workflow management, not marketing automation, but this helper as an email tracking, really powerful and good. You don't pay for yes wires, same kind of amount of money. And but if you want to track stuff, you really have to go to business. And full and free, almost free plan, not giving you a lot. So you can think about professional or a business. So.
Great.
One thing to keep in mind, there's a bunch of products out there.
Yep.
one thing you do want to do is not hop on necessarily at least not for production, to hop on like the latest or greatest of some company that you haven't heard of. And I'm not saying that about any of the ones that we talked about,
Yeah.
but just you don't want to have to um, go and get your data out by a certain point or lose it.
Yeah.
That sort of when some companies inevitably will not survive, and so it can be a bit of a hassle, particularly if you have a lot of data invested, and make sure you do backups in case you never know when if a company ends up getting a plug pulled and you don't have access to that data. So if you are going to experiment, do so cautiously and back up your data.
Yeah,
back up your data anyway.
Back up the data anyways, exactly. Yeah. We use even before it goes now. We were mentioning earlier, like we don't use Nutshell for sales for marketing automation. For basic direct stuff, we have almost like a commit log of all the things that we do with touch points, and it's in Google Sheets, and it does what as a sales team we need to do, which is what prospecting activities are working and not working. I don't need a CRM to do that. So there are certain things that I know probably won't go away, like Google Sheets. But now what I want to do is, for example, take that activity list and maybe just pipe it into Nutshell. But we'll probably keep the Google Sheets, because if we move away from Nutshell, I could then again just go back to the commit log. So that's more of a personal thing. I like using a manual process before I automate it, because I can iterate on the manual process before I end up using an automation. And it's just one of the best things that I learned through trial and error and blood, sweat, and tears. Don't force technology on a process that's bad, because it's just going to take the process and it's going to make it worse. So the reason we don't put stuff into Nutshell unless it's serious is that we just didn't want to spin our cycles for certain customers in the CRM, because it's a time suck. Having to log activities for non-important customers would have taken another couple of hours per person per week, and it's not going to add any value.
And that has to do with your particular organization.
Exactly.
So as you get bigger organizations and as your salespeople are perhaps more autonomous and you're wanting to keep track of what they are actually doing, that's a lot of times why all of a salesperson's
emails,
all of a salesperson's activity goes in, so that they can show, well, hey, look, I've been doing stuff. I can't help that, because if they only put in the stuff that is going to close, then their activity looks somewhat curtailed. And so,
excellent.
There's different organizations have different needs for different levels of reporting and transparency.
Exactly. So before we go, I want everybody that presented to kind of do a shout out for, again, who they are and what type of, clients and work they're, I'm guessing all three of us are in the service world. We do client work. So, and I'll preface that with our company, Anant, is in the business of, management consulting for internet teams and internet software teams. And we do difficult data engineering, but we partner with a bunch of people. So the fact that Stan, you, and Vlad, we were in this conversation really should be the first step in for us to be able to potentially collaborate. So my shout out is that if you are a service provider and you're a specialist, we want to talk to you as a potential partner. And what I want to offer to anybody is that if anybody wants a free roadmap, kind of what we did today, but like to dig deeper into a particular business process, if you're in the DC metropolitan area, I'm happy to come out and do that. Stan, what you do and what you'd like to work on.
So I'm an independent consultant. As we made a point of earlier, been doing this for decades. Sadly, but true. I actually am. I'm a bit of a generalist. I CRM has seemed to have been a consistent thing through my past 25 years. But right now I'm actually working in doing a lot of infrastructure work, containers, virtual machines, cloud, that sort of thing. I've had to do various things for various reasons for various clients who have wanted me to do certain things. So I have some deep areas, but I have a pretty general base, and that's helpful when you're looking at problems from a larger perspective and not getting pigeonholed into one thing or another.
Yeah.
So if I can be of help, please reach out to me. You can actually email anything at stanreeser.com and it will get to me, but it's stosh@stanreeser.com. STOSH.
Okay, I just put that in the chat for everybody. All right, excellent. And Vlad, again, just tell everybody who you are, what your company does, and what kind of stuff you guys are looking to do.
So at Live Typing, we do custom web and mobile development, focusing on UX, user experience. That's why selecting CRM was a kind of hard process for us. We want everything to be simple, sleek, nice, fast, and also a lot of things that we do is custom marketplaces of different kinds where people meet inside a web or mobile application, and while e-commerce. So if you need help with that or any user experience research and prototyping, advice or services, feel free to reach me at Vlad@livetyping.com. Vlad@livetyping.com.
I'm putting it in right now, and it's also sent out to all the chat members. And then you can also just email me at rahul@anant.us. Thank you, Vlad. Thank you, Stan. Appreciate. No, absolutely. This is an iteration of the meetup, and people have suggested that I do this as a podcast. So the videos right now, we're going to record it. We're going to put it up on YouTube and broadcast it. But I have about 2 or 3 other topics that will eventually just go on a podcast. So not only are you guys being recorded for YouTube, you're going to be on iTunes. And I really do hope that people reach out and contact you and seek your advice. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful holiday weekend. Happy 4th of July to everybody. Take care.